Hello, everyone, and welcome to the InCust Review, What Great Schools Do. This podcast is designed to inform educators, policymakers, and school communities about the research-based practices, policies, and procedures that make great schools, well, simply put, great. I'm your host, Dr. Deborah McLaren, Executive Director for InCust, and today I am excited to have Dr. Alexa Sorden. Welcome, Dr. Sorden.
Thank you for having me, Deborah. It's a pleasure to be able to participate in this podcast today.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I know that you've done a lot of work, and you're talking to us from New York. And the work that you have done there in New York City. So first and foremost, I want to ask you to give us a little bit of information, or our listeners some information about who you are and your role in education.
I'm Dr. Alexa Sorden. I was born and raised in New York City, and my entire career has taken place in the New York City Department of Education. I have had the pleasure of being the principal of Concourse Village Elementary School, located in the South Bronx, for the last 11 years. I'm actually the founding principal of the school. Our school is from grades 3K to 5, and we have about 250 students.
Oh my goodness, 250 schools. That sounds like a dream size. The last school I was principal of, we had almost 1,100 students, and it was elementary.
Oh, it's a lot of kids.
There was a lot of students. But also an opportunity to have a lot of impact. So I know that you are one of our award winners. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We were selected as the best urban school in the nation in 2020. We got the Gold Award, and it has been a beautiful experience. For the last 3 years, I've had the pleasure of learning a lot from Dr. Joe Johnson. So I've been able to participate in webinars. I've been able to participate in his book. So we're featured in the book. There's a case study there. I've been able to also connect with many educators nationally. So it's been a wonderful experience.
So you talked a little bit about the book. The leadership book tells the story, or tells some of the story of your school. And I know that the practices that are in that and some of the things that you share, I know talk about how you got the results that you got. Can you talk a little bit about your population and why that is so important for us to know? Because I know that a lot of times, for myself, I grew up in Chicago, a lot of times people don't believe that public schools can actually support students of color and students who come from low-income neighborhoods, and you have totally dispelled that myth. So talk to us a little bit about your population.
So as you know, the title of the book is When Black Students Excel, and I love that it provided real-life examples of outstanding schools in areas where you wouldn't think outstanding, amazing things would happen. So the South Bronx, where we're located, is, I guess, categorized as the poorest congressional district in the nation. Our students are predominantly Black and Latino, and we are a Title I school. And we have, 2018, we were the Blue Ribbon School for Exemplary Performance. Then we got the best school in the nation. We're currently the best elementary school for this year in New York State.
Okay, I'm going to call my daughters and tell them to start sending my grandkids there, even though they're in Seattle and St. Louis.
You know, it's beautiful because our students outperform everyone surrounding the immediate area, and many students in the New York City area and in the New York State area, and just nationally, period. Like this most recent state results showed that we were 87% proficient in ELA.
Oh my goodness.
And 82% proficient in math. And that's after a pandemic. We have amazing, beautiful children. And I think that we're beating the odds because of how we view our children. So that's something that in chapter 5 of When Black Students Excel, we share a lot of what makes our school work and how we're able to work with children that maybe in other situations may not have been deemed successful or viewed in that light, where we just view them as amazing.
So I know that one of the questions I wanted to ask was about equity and excellence, because that is something that InCust really focuses on in the work that we do. And also it focuses on the importance of, first of all, defining what is excellence and understanding what is equity. So talk to us about your beliefs and the work that you've done regarding equity and excellence. What does that look like at your school?
So when we think about equity at Concourse Village, I would say that it's probably the textbook definition of giving a child what they need. Being able to say, what are the resources and materials that you need to be successful? So we do offer a customized way of supporting all scholars. So knowing that it's not one size fits all, there are some things that are very systematic in terms of how we run the school. So we create predictable environments for all scholars and teachers. But when it comes to that idea of equity, where it's like, what is it that we're doing for kids and making sure that they have what they need every day? And then how is that coupled with this vision of excellence? So we do not believe in watering down education in any way. And what that means for us is that we teach to the standard and above. So the only option for us is that we're either on or above grade level. Anyone that may show based on an assessment of some kind that maybe they're not on grade level according to that, then they still get access to the same curriculum. We just know that the resources and the scaffolds that we're providing them are what they need to get to that level. So they don't get a different education. They don't leave the room. They don't go somewhere else. Everyone has access to the same high level of education. That means that it's rigorous. That means that we are intentionally selecting texts that are complex. We're looking at the quantitative level of complexity and the qualitative level of complexity. We're making sure that they have experiences outside of the school, whether that it's on a field trip to the museum, or whether that it's taking a trip to Philadelphia so that they can see connections to the American Revolution or other parts of history that they may have learned about. So we're intentionally creating opportunities for students to experience excellence by the materials that they receive, by the conversations that are being had in the classroom. And we also intentionally find ways to give them a lot of attention. So we get creative with scheduling. So oftentimes we can reduce the class size so that students are receiving undivided attention throughout the day in various courses.
So this is a little bit off the questions that I had for you, because I'm hearing an inner sort of drive that you have. Where did this come from? How did you come to having this vision and being so adamant about making sure students have all of these things? Who did that for you?
That's a great question. And I think that comes from the lack of support I had in school. So my mom is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. She got to this country in 1971. And my dad only finished the third grade. My dad was actually born in 1922 in Georgia. And he just finished the third grade and never went back to school. So he was illiterate. He was very hardworking, very loving. And I had parents that offered me a lot of love, stability. So I had them by my side where they gave me the things I needed at home. But in school, there were no challenges. In school, I learned quickly that, you're supposed to be silent. The teacher just wants to hear, the right answer. There was no space for thinking or curiosity. And I kind of learned how to do school. And by middle school, I became, I would say, disgruntled, very frustrated with the system, and started to rebel. And I remember cutting school, and I wouldn't go to school because it was not a rewarding or challenging or fruitful experience. And I showed up on the day that the 8th graders were taking the test to go to high school, and I passed. And my dean was very frustrated. She was like, "How is it that she can pass? Like, she's never in school. What is going on?" And that kind of, to me, was like, well, this proves that this doesn't work. Like, clearly, what's the point? So I told my mom that I wasn't going to go to high school. I said, "I'm not going. There's no point. I'm just going to drop out. She's like, okay, you're 13. You're going to school. Because I'm a December baby. So I'm like the last one that, to turn 14 for ninth grade. So she's like, you have to go to school because if you don't go to school, ACS, which is Child Protective Services for us, is going to take you away. And we're going to have a problem. So, I was reluctant and I showed up to the first day of high school. And there was this group called the Outward Bound. And they were waiting for me. And they said my name. I was like, okay, this. And I kind of saw like the group that they called. I was like, oh, I could already tell we're the troubled kids. And someone put me on an at-risk list, primarily for attendance. And that changed my life. That was the first time adults cared. That was the first time that adults outside of my immediate household cared truly about me. And they knew my name and they checked on me and they cared about my performance and they were able to guide me through high school. And I had great attendance and I graduated from high school. And initially I didn't go to college because my family didn't have the resources or the understanding to guide me through that process. And it took me working as a cashier for a year and a half to realize that this was not the lifestyle I wanted. And I enrolled myself first in a community college. And a professor told me, you're in the wrong school. You got to get out. And he advised me to apply to a private school, which was the College of New Rochelle. And from there, another teacher told me, you're not going to get your master's here. You're going to get your master's at Columbia University.
No.
I was like, there's no way that's going to happen. And sure enough, I got my master's at Columbia University. And that just taught me that when you have folks that really care about you, like my mom cared about me, my father cared about me, they didn't have the knowledge or the wherewithal to be able to guide me through that next step.
Yeah.
But there were folks in that system that did stop and did care and knew my name and cared about me. So that stayed with me forever. And that was like a promise that I made that I would be that for others. And I didn't know what I wanted to be. And through the Outward Bound program, I was required to do community service. And I worked with a young man at the local elementary school. His name was Carlos. And I worked with him for 3 months. And I thought that was all. That was my work. We worked on reading. And that summer, I'm walking through the neighborhood and I see him with his mom. And he tugs at her and says, that's her. And she approaches me and says, I just want to say thank you. Because of you, my son can read.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And that's when I became a teacher. I was like,
so you taught someone to read and you hadn't had the training to be a teacher yet.
No.
Wow.
And I was just like, this is impact. This is what humanity is supposed to look like. We are supposed to leave a footprint. We're supposed to make things better.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to pursue my career in education. And I actually got my master's as a reading specialist because of that moment in time.
So, what you're making me think about is my own sort of journey into this, because I didn't start in this career either in the beginning. But one thing that I've come to really not only understand but live, and that is the importance of excellence. And when I talk to other administrators that I now mentor, one of the things I say is that, first of all, when you're identifying excellence, you have to kind of understand what direction is excellence. What is the excellent way? And what I've said to people over the years, in the last several years, is that for me, the excellent way is about love. And that's really what it all boils down to. But I also have to understand what is love in the definition for excellence. And for me, love is patient, it's kind, it's humble, it doesn't want its own way, it's not easily angered, and sometimes love must be tough. And so as I've raised my children and now have the opportunity of spending time with my grandchildren, I want excellence. I want excellence for them. I want excellence for everyone's children, which means that I have to be willing to show, to give and receive love. And that's what you made me think of when you talked about what these people did and what your parents did and how they invested in you. They loved you first and foremost. They were patient with you. They were kind. They helped you. They supported you. They pointed you in the direction to give you direction at a time when quite frankly, your frontal lobe wasn't grown in yet. So being able to determine that you didn't want to go to high school at 13, that's not too unusual. You needed that brain reasoning first to get there. But you had folks who supported you in love.
It's so funny because oftentimes folks will ask me like, but wait, why does it work so well at your school? And I'm like, it's going to sound corny, but it's love, like loving what you do. And love is exactly what you defined for me. It's the same definition. And when I hear it, it's also coupled with integrity and that idea of that I'm going to do the right thing.
Yes. You know, it's interesting that you say integrity. We have very like minds here. When I have interviewed employees over the years, teachers over the years, or other staff member, it's one of the questions I will ask, particularly when I was hiring for teachers. I'd say, tell me the definition of integrity and give me an example of what you do that shows integrity. And I can't tell you how many folks don't understand what integrity is. So if you don't know what it is, the likelihood of you achieving it is not really high. And I will say to them later on, integrity is that your actions match your words. If you say you love me, I should see it in your actions. So thank you for the hand clap here. Our folks can't see that on the screen, but since we are virtually recording today, I have another question for you here. Tell us about a positive change you feel that you have made in your work as an educational leader, something you feel good about and believe is for the greater good. And I know we're kind of alluding to that as we've had this conversation.
That's a great question. And, initially when you asked that question, it makes me think about, I've done a lot of deep dive in the science of reading and we reworked the schedules. And I'm like, that's not really what I want to say. What I want to say is that I've worked on becoming a better human being. So when I think about what have I done in terms of the work in being a better educational leader, I have a slight addiction to like productivity books. So like I've read The 6 Habits of Growth. I read Atomic Habits. I'm Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life, I believe. It's Eat That Frog, Focal Point. So I've read a lot of books on productivity so that I could become better at time management. So I could become better at communicating. Because so much of the work that we do is grounded on communication and the messaging for parents, for teachers, for students. So I've shared my own personal development growth with our staff and then invited them to join me on that journey. So now they're reading the books and we're having conversations about how can we be more productive, because one of the things that we seek is balance. And I don't want them to be burned out because I've experienced burnout. And I know how, like, the toll that it can take on your personal life. And I've openly talked about, like, I'm a mother of 3. I've been married for 20 years. I know the pressure I've put on my own family or the lack of attention I've given them so that I could continue to do this work that I love, but I love them too. So how do you find that delicate balance so that you are like fulfilling all those roles that exist for you and doing it well? So as a community, we've been working on getting well and using tools to do that. So when I think about my role as an educational leader, yes, granted, we're definitely becoming smarter about what we do in the classroom, but I really wanted me and the team to become well-rounded and thoughtful leaders in our work so that we could be our best selves for children.
Well, I appreciate that because another thing that's connecting with me is the balance. And I've talked to other leaders about the importance of making sure that you have balance so that you not only take care of yourself, but take care of your family members as well. And one of the things that I have shared over the years is that I've come to believe that there are 3 universal concepts, that no matter where I've traveled around the world, that these 3 concepts are universal. The first is everything is about relationships. Everything. There's nothing around us that isn't about relationships. The second is that everything is about patterns, that there are patterns in the different cycles that we have, whether it's life cycles, whether it's eco cycles or water cycles or cycles in our lives, or time periods or seasons in our lives. Everything is about patterns, relationships. But the last one, which is equally important, you just talked about, and that is symmetry or balance, making sure that if we do something over here, how is that going to affect the other side in a way that's off balance and then causes a lot of frustration, chaos, and in some cases causes us to become not our very best selves. When I was a principal, one of the things that I did in order to last for 17 years was I had what I called sacred time. My sacred day was simply Saturday. I did not work on Saturday. I didn't do anything I didn't want to do on Saturday. And that was my way of having balance and making sure that I got the rest that I needed, that I could, rejuvenate and go do whatever was necessary on that day, spend time with my family, whatever it was. But balance is important. So finally, the last question I have, is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know about you, Dr. Sorden, the amazing leader of the Concourse Village in New York City, in the South Bronx, New York City, which I've got to get back to New York. I love New York, and I've got to get back there and enjoy the shows and the things that I enjoy. Anything else?
What I would probably want to share with our listeners is that, leadership is ever evolving. I'm in my 12th year as a principal, but my 11th year at Concourse Village as the founding principal. And every year I learn something new. Mm-hmm. And I create enough space to know that I am a work in progress and that every day I just strive to get better. The other thing I would like to share is that I'm always willing to open our doors. We always allow visitors. We have many videos featured on Edutopia if folks want to learn about some of our work. So we're always open to host because I believe that this work needs to be shared. And I want everyone to know that we're not alone. So again, if you want to come and visit Concourse Village, we're always here.
Well, I will take you up on that in my next trip to New York City. So thank you so much for being our guest today, Dr. Sorden. The NCUST, or the National Center for Urban Schools Transformation, was founded in 2005 to help districts and their partners transform schools into places where all students achieve academic proficiency, evidence of a love of learning, and graduate well prepared to succeed in post-secondary education, the workplace, and their communities. We will broadcast a new episode of this podcast at the beginning of each month. You can subscribe to the NCUST Review, What Great Schools Do podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, or iHeartRadio. We want to thank you for listening to this episode of the NCUST Review. Until next time, I'm your host, Dr. Deborah McLaren, for the NCUST Review, What Great Schools Do.